Hello everybody and welcome back to Cooking with Chef Banana Dan Griffin. Today I'm going to make for you 3 delicious dishes that are going to show off some of the influences I've come across here in South Florida. First dish I'm going to make for you is a ceviche. I have my ahi tuna here that I'm going to go ahead and dice nice and small. And when I cut this, I want my blade to run through my meat nice and evenly. I don't want to be sawing it and running back and forth. That's going to make my meat tough. If you watch some of the sushi chefs at your local sushi restaurant, you'll notice that's how they use their knives. I can tell I got a little connective tissue here. I want to go ahead and discard that. Now that I have my tuna nice and sliced, I can go ahead and work myself across. One even slice, not too much. Now my ceviche, or at least what I'm calling the ceviche here, is a bit different than any traditional ceviche you'll come across. I like to add a little coconut milk. And I also use the ají amarillo, which is a yellow pepper from Peru, which is very traditional. Now I'm going to prepare a sauce here. I have a saucepan heating up a little bit. I have only 2 ingredients, coconut milk, and now I have here, this is a ají amarillo paste. This is a yellow pepper that comes from Peru, specifically a bit spicy, but very, very traditional in ceviche. Add my coconut milk. I'll turn my heat up a little bit. So I got my saucepan on about medium heat and it already starts to smell like coconut. It's one of my favorite things about working with coconut milk. So now the other ingredient that I'm going to add here is my ají amarillo paste. This is a spicy pepper that comes from Peru and it gets a very yellow tint to it, which I really like. I like foods that give me a lot of color that I don't have to add anything that's not natural to it. So I'm going to let this come together. This is going to heat up, and this is what I'm going to use as the base for my liquid to my ceviche, okay? Like I said, not very traditional, but what can I say? I'm an American chef, so I do everything with fusion, everything for the first time. I've had so many influences being down here in South Florida that I like to meld them all together in ways that I like. So you can see already how yellow this is turning. Now that my coconut milk and my ají amarillo have reduced down, I'm ready to add it to my ají tuna. And I also want to give this a chance to set up and really kind of let those flavors start to marry together. And you see how that yellow? I love the color contrast with that purple and that yellow. So let this set up. I want to make some plantain chips to go with my ceviche. I just feel like it's a great combination, and we have plenty of plantains here in South Florida. So using a green plantain when frying, because it's going to give me that nice crispy texture and it's a bit more starchy than ones that have ripened a bit more. So I go ahead, I cut my skin off using my trusty cleaver here, run it down the center, and then this skin should come off. Now that I have the skin off my plantain, I'm ready to use the mandolin. I'm just going to go ahead and slide down, being sure to avoid my fingers getting in the blade. I always like to use South Florida ingredients, or ingredients I grew up with, because one, they don't have to travel far. I can usually find them on somebody's tree that I know, and I find them to be so delicious. I have to say, being this close to the tropics, our fruits, our citrus, our seafood, it's so good, and all we have to do is really just showcase it. Now I'm ready to start frying. I have my plantain sliced nice and thin, and I have my pot of oil here very hot. Woo. And when I put it in there, I want to see it react. If it reacts, I know my oil is hot enough. You can see it starts to float. This whole process should not take that long. I'm thinking I'm going to fry these until golden brown, so essentially when they're ready. But if I was to estimate it, I'd say around 25 seconds or so. So not very long. I always love using plantains because it is like a form of banana, and I am Chef Banana Dan, so it makes perfect sense, you know. I can already feel these starting to stiffen up. I really like this oil, very, very hot. It's very important to start with the right temperature oil. You won't create that same product than if you had a colder oil. So these are almost done. I can see them getting a little brown on the outside. They're all starting to float. You boys about ready? I think so. Almost ready to finish my ceviche. The last thing I have to do is slice up some red onion. Red onion is very, very traditional in ceviche, and the way I was taught is you want to add this at the end so it stays nice and fresh and crisp too with every bite, but nice and thin. So now it's time for me to go to work with my trusty cleaver. Now I'm ready to put together my ceviche, and I can't tell you how excited I am. I have a number of components here. First, I have my ahi that's been sitting in the ají amarillo and coconut milk. I have my plantain chips, that I'm gonna go ahead and shingle out on my plate here. I have some diced red onion, and then my twist that's very not traditional is I take some crab meat and I soak it in lime juice and a little bit of cilantro. So start with my tuna. Let's get that nice, that tuna looks great. Right in the center. This is an appetizer you want to share with your friends. This was something I was very much so intrigued by Peruvian food, the little bit that I've been exposed to it. And when I think of it, I think of the colors, I think of the freshness, and I just think of the tradition that's behind it. And then I think of location. You know, Peru's located on the Pacific coast, so you can see so many Asian influences in their food as well that I so appreciate. Okay, so now we got that. A little bit, just a little bit of red onion for crunch and for freshness. Red onion is going to be more mild than a Vidalia or a white onion, so that's why I like to use it here. I'm going to go a little bit of this crab meat with cilantro over the top. Now I've completed my take on ceviche here, which is the ahi tuna wrapped in a ahi amarillo coconut sauce with fresh crab on top that's sitting in a little bit of lime juice and cilantro, fresh red onion, and freshly fried plantain chips. You're gonna love this. Now it's time for me to start my second dish. This is gonna be a classic risotto dish where I use sweet peas and large Gulf shrimp. Risotto is a northern Italian dish, and I wanna start it off by putting a little bit of oil in my heated pan here. I'm gonna add my risotto, and it's important that you move the risotto around. Essentially what I'm trying to do here is coat each one of these pieces of rice with oil, with fat, with some sort of lubrication. That's gonna keep this from sticking on. Just kind of toasting this up nice. This is a process you don't want to rush. You want to take your time, toast the risotto properly, keep it moving, and it'll make you such a better product at the end. Now you saw me start with oil, but I also add a little bit of butter. I add the butter because it makes it nice and rich and very nice flavor, slightest bit of sweetness. But I made sure I added my oil because butter has a much lower smoke point than oil does. But by adding that oil, now I raise the smoke point of my butter and allowing me to use it without it burning. Now making risotto, I need to add some sort of liquid to it. Since I'm doing a shrimp risotto here, I'm going to use shrimp stock or seafood stock. But before I do that, I need to add a little bit of white wine. And let that white wine cook out. And now I can start adding my shrimp stock. I want to add this gradually, and I stir it in. And as it absorbs, I'm going to watch the exterior, want to see a nice creamy liquid. And that's really the starch coming out of the risotto and mixing. When you have risotto, it should have like the slightest little al dente bite on the rice, but should be surrounded by this velvety, buttery, creamy kind of sauce. So I can see that's already absorbed that a bit. Time for more. I like to add the sweet English peas because they do have a sweet undertone to them. The same way that shrimp has a sweet undertone. I'll let that come together. These peas are frozen, so I can go ahead and add them now. They'll go ahead and thaw out in here. Look at that color of those green peas. Love that. Time for more liquid. So this is something you really don't want to walk away from. You know, you want to stay here and sit through it until it's done. Unless you are like us chefs and have a million things going on and don't have that luxury. Now I have my risotto on this burner here that's simmering down and almost done. Now I want to go ahead and start on my shrimp. So I have a heated saucepan here. I start with a little bit of oil, so I can tell nice and hot. I'm going to add my large Gulf shrimp that I have here. Let those get going. These shrimp are going to cook really quick too, so I want to make sure I'm nice and quick with everything I need to add. I need to add a little bit of chopped garlic. It's in oil. I like to add a good amount of garlic. Tastes good. All right. Put a little bit of salt. Not too much. And then a little bit of black pepper. Let my risotto finish up. Give it a nice stir. Oh yeah, that's coming together nice. And it's going to be time to eat. So my shrimp here, you can see it's starting to get a little bit brown. I can watch my garlic and I see the rate that it's cooking at. And I can see the tail starting to curl up. That lets me know that they're about done. Since they're about done, I'm gonna add a little bit of white wine to it. There we go. A little bit of butter. Finish it up.
Parsley.
Look at that coming together real nice. Risotto just about done. Now I like my risotto a little bit looser. I like a nice creamy sauce to go along with it. Alright, so now I can tell my risotto is just about done and I'm ready to start plating. So I have my sweet pea risotto here, a little bit milky, a little bit creamy, just how I like it. And you see how that spreads out? That's really what you're looking for with risotto. So I get that nice and spread out. Nice amount. Risotto right there. Clean up my edge a little bit. And now, a couple of these really nice sauteed Gulf shrimp with a little white wine, butter, garlic, parsley, all these classic flavors that go so well together. I can smell the shrimp stock coming out of my risotto right here. There we go. A little bit of parsley to finish. And we're done, kids. Time to eat. Now it's time for my third dish, my dessert. So here what I have is I have a classic chocolate candy, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and I dip it in my funnel cake batter here. And I have my pot with oil nice and hot next to me. Slowly getting rid of the excess. And it wants to stick to it. I froze the chocolate and I got the batter nice and cold. So it really does want to stick to the chocolate here. Now I have that ready to rock. Drop it right in my oil here. Now these aren't going to take very long to fry up. And I also keep in mind that, you know, this is a piece of chocolate, so it really does want to melt. So that's why I froze it beforehand. I can tell these are almost done. They're starting to brown, and I've secured the outside. That's the other thing that I'm doing by adding this batter, is I'm adding a moisture barrier between the candy bar and the oil. There we go. It's looking nice. Ooh, nice and gooey. I'm not a pastry chef. It's not really my forte. So when it comes to dessert, I like to play with things. That's why you see me using a fryer as opposed to baking a cake or, you know, making a nice ganache. I use the tactics and the techniques that I feel most comfortable with when doing something that I'm not the most experienced in. Alright, now it's time to plate up. So I have my fried candy bars here, and I have my chocolate sauce, and it's time for me to do a little drizzle. My fried candy pieces. A little bit of crumbled Oreo for texture. And now I'm finished with my simple yet delicious dessert of fried candy bars and funnel cake with white chocolate and dark chocolate sauces and a little bit of crumbled Oreo.
Alright guys, completing another day, another success. Chef Banana Dan, Visions by Leo, bringing it to you live.
Thank you guys. Love what I do. Happy to share it with you.